Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Against All Odds. And Happy New Year to everybody as well, even though we have pre recorded this before Christmas. Right, as I say at the beginning of every podcast, it's purely a selfish reason why I record this podcast because I get to speak to people that inspire me. And today is no different. And I'd love to welcome Paul Price to the show. How are you, my lovely?
Very good, very good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to share with you.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you for coming on. It's an absolute honour because your work intrigues me, and I'm so excited to find out more. But I always start with the same question to every guest I have on. There's normally a big reason why you do what you do, and the way you impact people. So, what is your big why? How did you end up in the job that you've got now?
Okay, that's a great question. I woke up one day and it was as if I'd sustained a brain injury from a road accident or something. I couldn't breathe. I was completely disorientated. I was nauseous. I couldn't get out of bed. Every time try and think about something, I'd fall asleep. And I was in a really, really bad way. And um, basically, I had a very severe burnout. I was very unwell, and I went along to the doctors, got signed off work, got referred to NHS mental health services, and prescribed a whole load of drugs. And because I was working at the time as a board director in a very big company, this was all kind of a huge crash and burn moment for me, really. And I soon realised that actually that wasn't going to work for me. That pathway was not going to work. And this was at the end of the first lockdown, so I started to search around for another route out of my predicament. And I happened to come across a transformational yoga therapy program, which is a 21-day program. And I thought, I've got nothing to lose. And I went into it in a real mess. And I popped out the other side of it 21 days later, and it was the most extraordinary transformation that I have ever experienced. I looked 10 years younger. I'd lost a whole lot of unhealthy body fat. My cognitive function had completely restored itself. My creativity had returned, and I was feeling really, really good. And so when I got back from that, I, what was actually wrong with me in the first place? Because I thought I was going mad. And what was so effective about that program that had created such an extraordinary transformation in me? And so I went away and did a whole bunch of research and also took a breath coaching qualification. And actually, it was the breath certification that was my first eureka moment, because it taught me about the anatomy and physiology of breath and the body. And it became evident to me that actually what the problem was that I had a dysregulated nervous system. And I had a dysregulated nervous system from years and years of really chronic stress linked to work, but also, life,
Yeah.
divorce, ups and downs. I ran a business for 25 years, and I had a couple of sort of moments in those 25 years which were really, really stressful. And, all of those things combined to create that moment in time when I completely and utterly burnt out. And what really, really helped me was this understanding around, I wasn't going mad. This is actually just a dysregulated nervous system. And when you have a dysregulated nervous system, it's pushing you constantly into the sympathetic part of your nervous system, fight or flight. And of course, eventually the body just stops.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of that started the journey. Now, the other thing was that actually that 21-day program was actually a yoga teacher training program as well. And it was all just like, there's been a whole bunch of things that have happened to me that have been incredible luck, despite that sort of very dark moment. And that first was actually that I was accepted on that program. And it is actually thanks to COVID. I think they were a bit desperate. They didn't have much business. And I hadn't really done much yoga either. But I came out of it actually qualified to teach transformational yoga therapy, and obviously I did the breath coaching qualification, so I brought that all together, um, and started a whole sort of new kind of chapter in my life, which has been amazing. And yeah, so that's kind of led me to I just happened to bump into somebody one day who happened to be running an addictions center, rehab center, and she asked me what I was doing, and I said I'm a yoga therapist. She said, "Oh, that's interesting. We need somebody like you in our addiction center." And then that started me in a pathway of working with people with addictions, and I found that the breath work that I've been, helping people in addictions with in particular, incredibly helpful. It's, there's a whole kind of science around how the nervous system sort of pushes you into, um, you know, wanting and needing to reach for something to help you as a coping mechanism. And
Yeah,
clearly it's intrinsically linked to your nervous system. If your nervous system is dysregulated and out of balance, then often the only way to cope is through drinking or taking drugs or any other addiction. And so
yeah.
what this is about, the breath work's all about, is how you master, rebalance your nervous system. um, and I can talk for hours on this, by the way. So
That's why I love it. That's why I've got you. But you see, the thing is, do you find a lot of people suffer burnout? And a lot of people don't realize that they are stressed. It's like, because stress is addictive as well, because with cortisol and adrenaline, we can actually be addicted to stress without even knowing it. And in this modern world, everything, I don't know whether you agree with me, but everything is like hectic.
mm,
Like, everybody's too busy. Everybody's like, gets to the end of the day and say, right, I haven't stopped. Right. So I'm finding a lot of people with stress and obviously a nervous system problem, and it triggers illness, doesn't it? I mean, I always say to people, like, stress is the biggest cause of any illness out there, and obviously it's linked to your central nervous system. So do you agree with that? Like, if your central nervous system's out of whack, that causes illness as well?
yeah, I mean, chronic stress, eventually leads to anxiety. When you're stuck in that nervous system state, you chronically all of the time, and you're existing in that sympathetic part of the nervous system, your body isn't resting, it's not restoring. So much happens when you're chronically stressed. You have a hormonal imbalance going on in your body. The fact that you have got adrenaline and cortisol just in your body all of the time will impact on how you sleep. So, often if you're chronically stressed, you're going to wake up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's no surprise because you've got cortisol uh,
Yeah,
pumping around in your body because you've been triggered through the day and into the evening. And cortisol as a hormone in and of itself is the hormone that naturally comes into your body in the morning to wake you up and get you out of bed. So you've got this kind of cortisol imbalance with cortisol in your body going, hold on a minute, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but wake up. It's time to wake up.
yeah. And then,
Um,
oh, wide awake.
yeah, and you know, uh, you know, when you're stuck in fight or flight, you obviously naturally your heart rate is increased, your blood pressure is increased, your blood sugar is being processed differently, it's storing fat and energy in your body in a different way. So there's a lot of stress on your heart health, on blood pressure, hormonal imbalance causing an imbalance with thyroid and insulin and all sorts of stuff like that. So you've got this going on all of the time, but we're kind of wearing stress like a badge. We're kind of just cracking on. We're uh, in the hamster wheel, just running and running and running to keep
Yeah,
off the water. And like you say, that becomes addictive in its own right. And like you, I work with a lot of people who just think that work is what it's all about, and often it's because we're having to just survive anyway. But
yeah,
there's a lot going on physically when we're chronically stressed, and so no wonder we get to that point that we need to find a different coping mechanism. And um, part of what I teach when I'm doing the breath work is around this principle of the window of tolerance. And so if you think
Right.
about um, a window that's open, that's closed, when it's open, you're coping and you're resilient, okay? But when you're triggered and when you come under a lot of pressure, that window closes, and then you flip into one of two nervous system states. The first one is hyperarousal, okay?
Right.
That hyperarousal is when you're chronically stressed, when you've got anxiety, when you've got anger, when your mind's going, you can't sit still. Um, it's the nervous system's way of pushing energy into the body to create that fight or flight, right? To save your life. And then the other, when it closes, it pushes you into a state called hypoarousal. Now, hypoarousal is when energy is drawn out of the body, so you feel low mood, you are low energy, it's associated with depression. You start to withdraw, you can't be bothered to socialize, you don't want to get out, you want to get out of bed. And so this is your nervous system sensing danger, right? It's protecting you, and so it's pushing energy in, or it's pulling energy out. Now, when I had my burnout, I was flipping between both of those states.
Y-
I was struggling with alcohol, and eventually, that moment I woke up was obviously it pulled all the energy out of my body in order to save my life. Right? It was there to
Yeah. Yeah.
protect me, and so everything closed down. I curled up into a ball until my body could start to recover. Okay,
Yeah.
and obviously that recovery came through. Luckily, getting myself onto that yoga therapy program, and the thing that linked everything on that yoga therapy program was breath.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's
Wow.
how the
Yeah.
whole thing sort of came together, and that was my big, you know, my gosh, breath is so powerful, and it's we none of us are breathing properly. Uh,
Yeah.
Most of us are operating with a dysregulated nervous system, and now the sort of the key learning around all of this is that the nervous system is managing and controlling us. It's like this radar is constantly on high alert, so it's constantly keeping you from this danger, and that is chronic stress and anxiety. All right, so it's on high alert. It's managing and controlling your conscious thoughts and actions. And breath is the only tool that we have that can actually manage and control our nervous system. So through breath, we can start that rebalancing process and start to become more resilient and start to cope. And that's the
Yeah.
thing of the window of tolerance. When we notice those triggers, when we notice the knots in our stomach that start that spiral, especially when
Yeah.
associated with addictions, and we often talk about this in the addiction centers, that effort moment when you then start to reach for something. That's the moment that I teach people to work with breath. When you feel it in your stomach, when you start doing that in your head, you can start working with breath to avoid that window closing fully, and then you spiraling out of control with it. It's
Do you know what?
amazing.
It's amazing because you know what? It's like really simple, but people bin it off because it is that simple. Because we like to complicate things, don't we, as humans?
Yeah, yeah.
But
And I'd love to do a little exercise with you actually.
oh god, yeah,
So
well,
cool to do
I'm
it.
excited. Yeah,
So
yeah,
so I know obviously people are watching this, and so when you watch it, you join in as well.
yeah.
Okay,
You got to join in,
you
everybody.
got
Yeah.
to join in. So what I'm going to ask you to do is look up, look down, look left, look right to my instruction, but just with your eyeballs. All right.
Okay. So
So
not moving my head, just my eyes, right?
you don't move your head, just your eyeballs. Okay.
Okay.
So you ready for this?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So look up, look down, look left, look right, look down, look up, look down, look up, look left, look right, look down, look up, look down, look at me. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed here. What did you notice about your breath?
Did it stop? I think it stopped.
You held your breath. Thank God you said the right answer.
Did I hope? Oh, I hope everybody else did when they did that.
Everybody else that was watching,
Yeah, yeah.
comment
Yeah,
or
that was
whatever.
quite
But
odd. I think I became aware of it more at the end.
yes, yes.
I haven't took breath. Yeah.
So what was going on there? So your so breath awareness is actually one of the key things here, actually. So what's happening is your nervous system, even though you're sitting in a safe place, obviously at home, in front of a safe person, myself, your
Yeah.
nervous system went, hold on a minute, I don't trust this, I don't recognize this. I'm going to hold the breath. It instructs you to hold your breath, which you literally went into fight or flight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you're ready for something. So that's a really simple example how the nervous system detects things and then sends you into the sympathetic part of your nervous system and triggers fight or flight. And so a lot of people listening to this might actually think, hold on a minute, I'm at work and I'm holding my breath all the time.
Yeah.
And you might sort of jump onto an email and go,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
and go,
And yeah.
being an angry response back or something, but that's, you're nervous and you're getting ready for something. And so um, when you're holding your breath, that's when you need to bring in a breathing technique, okay, to start that rebalancing process and um, not force you into emailing something an angry response back or saying something uh,
Yeah.
angry back. And that goes back to that window of tolerance thing, because I've noticed I've held my breath. So that window of tolerance is closing, and I'm going to either go angry or I'm going to withdraw. So
Yeah.
it's and the other thing to be conscious of is the rate of breathing as well. And
Yeah.
so when you think about your breath, how many breaths per minute do you think you take, for example?
Oh, I've got no idea.
There's no right or wrong answer, but
I've got no idea.
I guess
How many we're supposed to breathe a minute?
what we're supposed to, but most people go, I don't know, 30 or 40 breaths per minute, and that's quite common, people saying that. But in
Yeah,
actual,
I'd have probably gone about 40.
yeah, so in actual
Yeah.
fact, the if you're kind of just sitting around and you're chilled out, we're looking at about five breaths per minute, which is the
Really?
breaths per minute. Yeah. And obviously, if you're walking around, you need to breathe a bit more. So about 12 breaths per minute if you're walking around. And the way to think about breath is energy, right? You use
Mm,
breath in order to pump up the inner engine, the fire you need to move, right? And
yeah.
so, when we're chilled out, we don't need that much of breath to pump the engine. But if we are sitting down and we've got high anxiety, of course, that's firing the engine when we don't need to, which is when all the problems start to come in. Um, so yeah, so I'll talk a lot with my groups around breath being energy. If you're low mood, you can use breathing techniques to raise the level of energy, because that low mood is hypoarousal. Remember earlier I was saying about drawing energy out of the body. You feel low, you need to bring the energy up. If you're feeling high anxiety and hyperarousal, then you need to work with breath to bring you down back into that safe middle ground, which is about how we cope and become more resilient. Um, yeah,
Yeah. You know what? It's absolutely fascinating because on my stress masterclass, I talk about breathing and we talk about doing box breathing because you can do it anywhere if you're feeling stressed. Because obviously your brain needs oxygen. Right?
yes,
It definitely needs oxygen. But for the last, say, back end of this year, well, last year, because we're in 2025 now, even though, I made a goal of doing like 3 breathwork sessions a week.
mhm,
So I'd gone on YouTube and just did like 5 minutes a day. I didn't realize until I'd done that a few times how quick I was breathing daily.
yes, yeah.
Because I think you have to breathe slower to realize how quick you've been breathing. It was quite an eye opener.
Yeah, it is. And, with breath, what we're working with actually with breath work, particularly foundational breath work that is helping to create calm and balance and rebalance the nervous system, is actually the most important part of that breath is the exhale. Because
Right.
when you think about fright, for example, If I
Mhm.
was to if you were walking down a corridor and I thought it's the funniest thing in the world to jump out behind you and go, "Whoa," right? What's the first thing you do?
Hold your breath.
You literally go,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you realise it's me in a stupid onesie with a Father Christmas hat on or something, and you go, "Oh my God." And you breathe out, right? So every inhale is linked to stimulating the sympathetic part of the nervous system, okay?
Right. Okay.
Every exhale works with the parasympathetic part of the nervous system. That's the calm, rest, restore, and digest part of the nervous system. And so when
Right.
you balance, inhale, exhale, little bit of inhale, little bit of exhale, it's fine. But if we're
Right.
actually constantly going,
Yeah.
holding our breath or we're breathing quite rapidly, then we're just overstimulating that sympathetic part of the nervous system. So with this breath work, what we're doing is we're trying to focus on the exhale.
And slowing it down.
Retention of CO2 is
Right.
the aspect of breath that actually works with the parasympathetic part of the nervous system. So it creates that rest, restore, calm, and digest. Okay.
Right.
And I say rest, restore, calm, and digest because um, as much as when we are highly stressed and have got anxiety, bodily functions are elevated, heart rate, blood pressure, and so on. At the same time, our body naturally closes down bodily functions. So our ability to restore tissues and recover, the way we digest food, okay, our
Yeah.
reproductive system,
Mm.
our memory, uh,
Yeah.
things that we don't need when we're there to save our life, right?
Yeah.
So when we're in that kind of chronic fight or flight. So um, obviously, when it comes to reproduction, if you're a woman and a man also trying to have a child,
Mhm.
you're in very, very high stress jobs, then many people find it very difficult to conceive
Yeah.
because it's closing down in important
Yeah.
bodily functions. So yes, there's a huge amount going on just from good old fashioned stress that we wear
Yeah.
is
Well, yeah, well, wear it with pride.
work hard,
Yeah.
um,
Interesting enough, I did read an article, I think it was last month, and I can't remember where it was. And it was saying how, like IBS is like skyrocketed over the last few years. And they were saying that breath work could actually help that. And you just said about the digestive system.
yeah,
I know quite a lot of people with digestive and gut problems. So that could be a solution.
totally. I mean, look,
Right.
if you just look at breath as being genuinely the most transformational thing that anybody can do. I'm a grandmaster in yoga therapy, right? And so obviously I'm a huge advocate of yoga therapy.
Mm,
Therapy intrinsically is breath work. Okay.
yeah.
And so we're working with breath and movement to break down the toxins, the stress toxins and everything in the body. But certain breathing techniques you can channel into like the gut. For example, belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, where you inhale and as you inhale, you push the belly out and you exhale and you pull it in. That's a calming breathing technique. But at the same time, it's also helping uh, channel the body's natural sort of healing energy into the gut area. And so you're calming your nervous system at the same time as channeling energy, healing energy
Mhm.
into your gut. That's it's also called a pranayama as well, which is there's a whole bunch of amazing yoga therapy breathing techniques called pranayama that you work with energy, you work with breath to speed up the healing process. And
Wow.
go back to energy, breath being energy, and just translate that into how we can speed up our own recovery from whatever we're struggling with. Breath is at the very, very center of it all. It's amazing.
Yeah. 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 And we have control over it when we learn to control it. Now, interestingly, you said about the exhale.
Mm.
So I'm hoping you can answer this for me. So I've been, like I said, I've used a few different breathing techniques. Some will get you to exhale but through your nose slowly, and others will get you to exhale but through your mouth slowly. So what's the difference with that?
Okay, really great question, actually. So, um, if you think about your nose, you've got a lot more control over the breath through your nose. Your mouth is quite a big funnel. So,
Yeah,
kind of slow down the exhale. If you're doing it through your mouth, it's, you're not going to slow it down quite as much as it coming out through your nose.
right.
And so, I always teach in through the nose, out through the nose. I always teach, you how to remember is you eat through your mouth and you breathe through your nose, so
Yeah.
that's the aim. And
Mm,
if you take it onto sort of another way of thinking about why it's really beneficial to just focus on nasal breathing, it helps enhance human performance. So when you start looking into elite athletes, often they will train with their mouth taped because actually
yeah.
that's helping to improve your human performance. The way the body works with CO2 retention, even though we know that CO2 is a toxin, by retaining it, it actually helps to improve your human performance as well as work with the parasympathetic part of the nervous system. Um, Really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, so it can actually calm us down and then give us a load of energy as well, like with the athletes. It's
Indeed.
incredible.
And the other thing that often I'm asked is people say to me, "Oh, I've got a yoga teacher that tells me to a meditation teacher, in through the nose, out through the mouth." And I'm not here um, to contradict anybody, but all I know is that if I am inhaling through my nose and then exhaling through my mouth, and I'm trying to meditate, that's a conscious action that you've got to do.
Yeah,
Whereas,
yeah,
and so it actually takes your mind away from the meditation, because
yeah,
the aim is to kind of trying to create empty space so that
yeah.
you can start to work with your inner guidance, and gain clarity through that sort of empty space that starts to be filled by other things. But if you're going inhale nose, exhale mouth, that's kind of all you can focus on.
Mm,
Maybe it's quite useful, if we've got a lot of that going on in our head, and you start focusing on that. But then, you know, I think you need to move to in through the nose, out through the nose. I mean, that's how I teach it anyway. So
yeah. Yeah, no, that makes
anybody
complete
watching,
sense now you said it. I love that. So if anybody hasn't tried breath work and they're a little bit like, I don't even know where to start, like how long do I need to do it for? How many times a week do I need to do it? What would
yes,
your best advice be? Because like
okay.
I say, I'd not tried it till 3 months ago. So
Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, my recommendation is once you've learned, 2 or 3 different breathing techniques, um, and you have your go-to favorites, uh, my recommendation is that you use it therapeutically. So whenever you notice, going back to breath awareness, whenever you notice you're holding your breath, then straight into that favorite breathing technique. If you notice that your heart rate is up or you're breathing rapidly, straight into that breathing technique. You feel that first knot of anxiety, that first trigger, which is often you feel it in your gut, right? Where
yeah,
we feel all our worries and fears, it's in our gut. We go straight into a breathing technique. That way, we know that we're keeping that window of tolerance open, and we are managing and controlling our nervous system. We're not letting our nervous system take control of us.
yeah,
That's a really important lesson, really.
right,
And then is to actually do a little bit of daily practice at the start of the day,
yeah,
and then before you go to bed. So if you want, so for example, I my personal practice is I get up early because I need to create a bit of space for that. I still have a busy day job, and I will do my necessary time, and part of that will be my breath work. So if you're starting out on it, just do 5 minutes in the morning. It'll
yeah,
get you off. It'll sort of balance the nervous system. If you start off the day a bit worried, stressed out, that you start worrying about work, 5-10 minutes of breath work. Whenever you get those knots on the way into work, at work, whatever, start do a little bit of breath work, and then at night before bed, sit in bed, lie down in bed, and then do your personal practice. That way, you're rebalancing on trying to rebalance your nervous system. You're trying to rebalance out the adrenaline and cortisol before you
Mm.
sleep. Now, before my burnout, what was happening with me was that I would fall asleep immediately because I was so utterly exhausted. Um, but then I'd wake up at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then,
Yeah,
all your demons are magnified at that time, right? So
yeah.
everything,
Everything, and even the world's problems are
yeah,
your
I mean,
problem. Yes.
it's like a massive spiral, and so and again, that is the time. As soon as you wake up, go straight into breath work. Everybody I teach, everybody that does it benefits from this. If you dip in and out of it, it's fine. You can use it therapeutically because breath works instantly. Within 30 seconds, you're back in control.
Yeah,
If you actually do this as a bit of daily practice, that is when the transformation will really, really take effect. Yeah,
yeah.
amazing.
Absolutely incredible. Now, you mentioned meditation, which is also a passion of mine. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to quiz you about that as well, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, I've only meditated for it's only been the past 2 years where I've actually sat down and meditated, and I do meditate quite a lot. Before then, I was a big believer in I couldn't meditate because I believed that I had to sit there for an hour and think of nothing. And
Yes.
obviously, I couldn't do it because I've not met anybody that can do that yet.
Yes. Yes.
um, so it's a myth, isn't it, that you sit there and think of nothing?
Correct. Yes and no.
Yeah.
Um, so the first thing is that it is actually almost impossible to, like I always, it makes me laugh a bit when people take groups and they go, right, now we're going to do meditation. So let's just sit there and start. Yeah, and you go, it's just absolutely almost impossible to just go into
Yeah.
meditation, right? So with yoga therapy, the way it works is that you prepare yourself for meditation. You have to prepare yourself for meditation. So with yoga therapy, you do the yoga part of yoga therapy, so movement and breath. You
Hmm.
do your breath work, pranayama. Okay, you then do some mantras, and then you've prepared yourself for meditation. So by that time, you've prepared your body and your mind, and you can almost instantly go into a meditation, right? And that meditation can almost be completely empty, all right? Obviously, it takes a little bit of practice to get to that point, but you're right in saying that actually, when thoughts pop into your head in meditation, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
actually part of releasing and letting go, because um, another thing here, if you imagine a huge triangle, right? At the very tip of that little pinprick at the top of that triangle is your conscious thoughts. Everything
Mm.
else is your subconscious. Everything else that's happened in your life from the moment you were born, and actually also comes through from your DNA chain, is stored in your subconscious. Okay,
Yeah.
and so you've got this vast subconscious that is you know um, controlling and influencing our conscious thoughts and actions, and you know and so we've got this going on. And I've actually slightly lost my train of thought now we're going into, but what was the question again?
About thinking while meditating, and it's okay, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes,
Yeah.
because it's trapped trauma coming out of your subconscious. It's the stuff
Yeah.
you need to release often. So even these crazy thoughts, these pictures, these images, this whatever, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't need to make sense. The problem is if you start to dwell on it and think about it and become conscious of it, that's when it starts to disrupt the meditation. So
Yeah.
the art of it is about, okay, something's come in, and then I'm sure you've heard meditation teachers say it, but you you observe that thought as if it's like a cloud in the sky, so just watch it come and go.
Yeah.
You focus on it and keep it there and hold it there, then you're gonna draw yourself out of that meditation.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
idea
Because
is
you think of the next thing, your brain will go, right, this is the next thing. And then you get like a train, and before you know it, you sat there and thought of absolutely everything.
yeah, yeah, I know, and then suddenly you realise you're not meditating anymore, but just
Yeah.
worrying.
Yeah. Yeah, I recorded a podcast a couple of months ago with a chap that had actually done a morning meditation, sent it out to everybody, and he was laughing at me because there was one point where I'd been trying meditation for so long, and I just kept saying, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I can remember the day where I'd sat there, and all of a sudden it was like, in my head, it was like, Amy, you've got to go to Morrison's to buy a chicken. And I was like, that's it, I can't meditate anymore, I'm just
Yeah,
useless at this.
yeah. What's really interesting, actually, just going back to the kind of nervous system and everything, is that that often in the group sessions I have when I'm working with addictions, there's a lot of trauma in the room, and when we have a nervous system that's been for years and years and years dysregulated, our nervous system is actually speaking to us all of the time. As I said earlier, it's this constant rate
Yeah.
going on, detecting danger. That danger's trapped in your subconscious, right? So it's kind of like you're trapped. Um, but the but 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 the aspect of it speaking to you is so important, because when I'm in that room with people, often I'll have somebody get up and just kind of walk out, and their nervous system is so dysregulated that it's going, even though you're in a safe place, even though I'm trying to teach them to relax, their nervous system is going, it's not safe to relax. You've got to get out. You've got to get out. And that forces them to get out. It happens occasionally.
Yeah.
And it's a real battle, because the nervous
Yeah.
system has got so much trauma, and it's looking out for that person so much. It's telling them to run, 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 escape. And so, for people that are struggling like that, this breath work is like is an absolute game changer. I've had people in sessions.
Do you think that interest? Yeah. Do you think that when you said about like people actually getting up and walking out, do
Mm.
you think that it just popped into bed as you spoke? With addictions, it's like you're covering up emotions. So I suppose once you stop those addictions and find the way to do it without, I suppose those emotions can flood you, because obviously you've not got the addiction to calm it down or cover it up.
Yeah, I, I think that I think that I probably don't look at it quite. I mean, yes, you could look at it that way. I think I just really like to frame it that the nervous system is so trapped in fear that until you can train your nervous system to feel relaxed, it's always going to push you to run or take drugs, right? So when we talk
Yeah, yeah,
about they'll be in the addiction center for 3 or 4 weeks, and what we all know is that the chances of relapse are very high, right? And so again, that's the nervous system. When you go back into your everyday, and those triggers and daily reminders of the traumas start to flood back, they often don't have, people that go into addiction centers don't have the tools like breath work to
yeah,
manage that, manage those triggers that are going to push you into relapsing. And so that's what, again, going back to
yeah,
breath work, it's about managing and controlling the nervous system, keeping that window of tolerance wide open so that you can cope, you can be resilient, and then it doesn't push you back into into relapsing. It's a
yeah,
important thing.
yeah, and kind of showing your body that it is safe. And
Yes.
that's the thing,
Yeah,
isn't it? I mean, we constantly run on fear, so actually showing our bodies that it is safe.
it
So
is. Yeah,
yeah, that's completely understandable.
and it's really
I,
interesting.
I, I completely agree as well. Go on.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's just really interesting because, you know, it has been a journey for me, and working with people with addictions has been a huge, amazing learning curve. And, I've kind of gone in and done the group breath coaching sessions, and I get so much different sort of like feedback. Everybody comes in with different, issues in their lives, ranging from childhood trauma, up to just trauma that's happened in their adult life and everything. And, the one thing that kind of
Yeah.
binds everybody in those groups is, huge, massive anxiety, um, more than anything, panic attacks, insomnia. And this really, I promise everybody, if anybody's listening to this that is struggling with any of those, that breath work will change your life. It has changed my life. I've managed my recovery from burnout, obviously. And burnout, yeah, I mean, you can separate burnout and addictions, and they're intrinsically linked as well. Mine was intrinsically linked, and this breath work, and if I was just doing breath work alone, it would be enough, I think. But I happen to
Yeah.
bind it with yoga therapy as well. But um, it gives you that resilience that you need to be able to it's a bit like a tree with no roots. If you don't have roots in a tree, you're going to get blown over when the first storm comes. But you're just kind of, with the breath work, you're pushing those roots into the ground. You're creating a stable foundation for recovery. And it's the same with burnout. But burnout, um, without addictions, if you don't have these tools, you're going to burn out again. You will. And there's some great people out there that are talking about burnout. And you know, I know with my own burnout and my relationship with alcohol as well, I have to really manage that, and I do
Yeah.
it through breath. It's amazing.
Yeah. You're so right. It's like burnout. I speak to quite a few people that are burnout. People don't recognize though that they're burnt out. It has emotional problems plus physical problems as well. And I think we are a nation as well. I don't know whether you agree. Like, it's a society thing. When you've had a hard week or a hard day, it's to go and get a glass of wine, or
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? That is a society thing. We've been
Mm.
taught that that's what it is. If you're stressed, you have a drink. If you've had a hard day at work. So I can absolutely understand why people like end up in burnout that is twinned with addiction, because I do believe that's what we're taught in society. So the fact that you are showing them actually there's a solution here that's really, really simple. It's going to cost you absolutely nothing. You've already got it, is absolutely amazing, because you're right. A lot of people will talk about addictions and burnouts, but not a lot of people offer a solution that's simple and quick to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, with the sessions that I run, that at the end of the 90 minutes, they feel great. They feel absolutely great. And I say to them, look, um, and often people will be saying, "Oh my God, I'm getting like tingles down my arms. I'm feeling like this extraordinary like feeling in my body." And I talk about, yeah, because you're working with energy in your body, you're learning to release and let go. How do you feel? And she's like, I feel amazing. It's like I'm kind of on drugs. And I say, well, look,
Yeah, yeah.
it is a natural high. And I said,
Mm.
I said, I always say, if I am feeling so low, or I'm feeling really angry, or I'm really upset, the first thing I do is I just roll out that yoga mat and I just start. And I don't need to reach for a glass of wine. I don't need to have 10 tons of chocolate and eat a whole load of shit, or excuse my French. But do you know what I mean? Because we reach for things
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for ourselves, but actually with breath, with something like yoga, you can just go to it, and actually within a very short space of time, you suddenly feel okay. You suddenly feel okay. You don't
Yeah, yeah.
to have a glass of wine that ends up being two, that ends up being a bottle, that ends up being two bottles, and before you know it, you're feeling bad. You're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like I say, it's easily done, and like I say, socially acceptable as well. So that doesn't help.
yeah, it's an odd
So
one.
I know you work with Yeah, it is. It's yeah. I know loads of people, including my parents, that did that as well. So it is, one of those things. So you work with groups. Do you work with individuals as well? So if
Yeah,
somebody's like, right, I'm really interested in getting into breath work and learning more about it,
yeah,
because
yes.
I absolutely recommend it to people. So you work one on one with people, yeah?
One-on-one. The group work is usually through addiction centres or with companies that want to do like a full session program, that sort of thing. Yeah, work with individuals, talk about uh, learning about what's going on with the body, just like we have done today. It's a real, for me, it was, as I said earlier, it's like it was an absolute game changer to go, do you know what? It's just my nervous system, and this breath is a superpower. So one-on-one online can do, one-on-one in person can do, yeah, just really whatever's needed.
Yeah, but I was going to ask you as well, when you start getting like into breath work and you're doing it and you're noticing it, do you find it easier to spot when you're feeling a little bit anxious or a little bit stressed?
Yeah,
Does your self-awareness of what you're telling you increase? Because I can imagine that it would do.
yeah, it does, and it goes back to that, you know, the knot in the stomach. As soon as you feel it, breath work. As soon as you notice you're holding your breath, go straight into breath. If you ignore those, then you're going to start a spiral, and
Mm,
before you know it, you're feeling high anxiety, and you're not coping, or you're not being resilient. And this all affects our work
yeah,
performance. It affects our relationships. And I go back to,
yeah,
if I am triggered by, let's say you're in a toxic relationship, often that person is, to get their satisfaction, they're trying to trigger you. And so
yeah,
when you're in that situation and that person is triggering you, it might be somebody at work. If you go straight into breath, then you are not being triggered. You're not reacting in the same way, because you're keeping control of the situation. And so
yeah,
you will, you might not, well, you won't, certainly won't say an angry response, which, might actually stop a situation escalating. Or, in fact, if you're the type of person that when you are triggered, you don't say anything, you zip, you kind of walk away, that actually it gives you the resilience and enough coping mechanism to say, well, hold on a minute, I don't accept what you're saying, that's not fair. Let's
yeah,
go back to that. So it's goes back to that greater resilience. And so you're able to handle situations better. You don't get angry and say bad things. You can say things when you might not normally say things because you're too scared to, so
yeah.
it's a lot.
I think that's key, because life can be stressful. It is the modern world. Every day can't be perfect. So learning a simple technique so that you navigate life and its situations better is
Yes.
absolutely like up there as a top priority for me.
And I think
So
that the other
thank you for
yeah, sorry.
sharing.
The other thing is carving out
So
a bit of time every day, because, when you think about it, we put our job first, we put our partner first, we put our children first, we put our friends and family first. Uh, oh, and then there's us, and there's no time for us because
yeah,
everything else has been prioritized. And so this is the kind of like part of the kind of self-sabotage cycle that we all end up in, that we just we go, oh, I'd like to do this, but I've got all these other more important things to do. Well, actually, no, hold on. When you've had a burnout and you've completely burnt out, or you are completely ruined by addictions, then you've hit rock bottom, right? And you go, no, the way to recover is by putting myself first, which is just, it's not a lot of time is required, but that little bit of having a routine, a practice of breath work, of a little bit of exercise, whether it be yoga or moderate exercise, is absolutely critical to, uh, maintaining a really, really healthy recovery,
yeah,
and maintaining your well-being, your overall health and well-being, the accrued benefits of daily breath work is well, it's a bit like running a marathon. You know, if you train for a marathon and you get to marathon fitness, irrespective of the time, and you don't continue a little bit of running every day, you're not going to be able to run a marathon again. Life is a marathon. We have to keep
Yeah.
doing a little bit, a little bit, a little bit to maintain that fitness. And what we're talking about here is the fitness of our nervous system, or controlling our nervous system. Um, yeah,
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, you're so right. I think a lot of people feel guilty about looking after themselves. They will put everybody else first.
yeah.
And then if you say to somebody, just do something for you, people actually feel a little bit guilty, which is something I've had to learn over the last few years as well. Because I
Uh,
also think
It's a
society
it's an
kind of
interesting one, isn't it? I think it's you know, when we think about how can we be the best version of ourselves, we can only be the best version
yeah,
of ourselves when we actually invest in ourselves, right? So if we
yeah,
really want to serve our families, we want to serve our, you know, our jobs, our everybody, we, in order to turn up and be the best version of ourselves, we have to put ourselves first. And we, for some
yeah.
reason,
And everybody benefits around you then as well. Like
absolutely,
if you're well, everybody else benefits from that.
yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So where can people find you on social media if they're like going, right, that's for me, that's 2025, that's something I want to try. Where can people catch you?
Yeah, sure. So you can find web address is www.my-recovery.co.uk. You can also find me at Mindfully Poorly. So I'm at a slight transition between Mindfully Poorly, which I've had for ages, and transitioning into My Recovery. My Recovery is sort of bringing everything together underneath that one
Yeah,
banner now, and
yeah,
working with people individually, working with people in addictions, working with addiction centres, and any therapeutic setting where anxiety, insomnia, chronic stress, and all the associated other things like panic and depression and everything is involved. But yeah,
that's amazing. I've got one last question for you that I ask
right.
everybody, and it's the hardest question. They hate it. Paul, tell me three good things about yourself.
Oh, okay. I think my glass is half full. Uh,
Yeah.
I oh my goodness. Yeah, I oh God, do people get to 3? Uh, yeah,
They do, but they swear at me a lot while they're doing it.
my glass is half full. I am a very calm person,
Yeah,
thanks to thanks to everything that I know.
yeah.
I love to help others and serve
I I love that. You see, it wasn't that hard, was it?
others.
It throws everybody, they hate it.
Yeah,
So I do on purpose throw it in at the end now. Well, thank you for being such an amazing guest.
thank you.
Breathwork is definitely it fascinates me, and then the science behind it is just stacking up all the time. So I advise anybody to go and check Paul out and have a go at breath work and just see what it kind of alters in your life, because I definitely over the last few months have noticed a difference as well doing it. So thank you, my lovely. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Take care.
And you. Bye.